frame of the stream, we're gonna be live. Yeah. Hello and welcome, and that's Sideways and to Humanetics. If you are watching this after we've streamed, then you will notice that the very first frame of the video was all of us, and then I went to the intro. It's a rookie mistake. But
hey,
if you're catching us live, isn't that fun? Just like one frame. I mean, okay, where's the button at? And then we get. I'm like, hey, I'm all like animated and stuff.
Oh no, let me tell you what I did. This has only been okay. I've been doing this for a hot minute, and just a couple of months ago, I sat there. I was playing the video, and I'm watching the video on here. And I'm just, I'm doing this with my hair. I'm taking coffee. I'm just doing stuff and sitting real quiet. About 30 seconds into the live, I realized the video is not playing. It's just me sitting there doing, all this kind of stuff.
That is wonderful. I think instead of actually posting any real content, all of our actual content is going to be in like the live format like this, and then every video that we post is just going to be like stupid things that happen during the live, or like I would like that 30-second clip of you just like with no music or anything, or we were looking at different clips, from last week where we just kept interrupting each other. I thought that was pretty funny. But hey, everybody and everyone in chat, I hope that the hurricane you are safe. Do we all? How has the hurricane affected us, folks? We all here, Colton and Silky.
I was prepared. I had stockpiled food, water, stuff like that, and the map showed like for days. And I watch Ryan Hall, y'all, for my weather. Like if you don't know who that is, like look him up on YouTube. He is amazing. But anyway, all the models were showing that it was going straight up, Alabama Georgia line and curving west over North Alabama. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna get slaughtered. And it didn't. It just
go ahead and post
it went above us.
Go ahead and post your address in the chat so that we'll know just exactly how safe you were.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she was marginally affected by this hurricane. Wow.
I'm gonna
go to that place. I'm gonna knock on the door and just make sure she's okay. Hey, Mythical, it's glad to see you. That's what it being me. The hurricane was kind of silly because I work a couple days a week at a pizza place, and what was it, Saturday, it was calm and boring, And then the moment that rain started to touch the earth, everyone decided that it was too dangerous to step foot outside. But that if you were already at a location that, like, pizza delivery drivers and all that, it's fine. It's fine for them to drive the pizza to me, just as long as I get to eat and don't have to go outside into this dreadful and scary and terrible hurricane. But it's weird. People draw that line like, oh, well, I don't want to go outside, but if someone else is already out there and they want to deliver me pizza for like $3, I'll do that. But,
I actually had my groceries delivered too.
Oh my
From
God.
Walmart. Yeah, I did. I'm like, I'm not going out in that.
Here I am yapping about like, oh, the selfishness of people. And you're like, actually, that was me too.
Hello, Daniel Berry. And I guess wisdom is already gone. But yeah, hello y'all. Good to see you. Woo woo.
All of y'all.
Hello,
All
mythical.
of y'all. Yes, mythical. It might get to be a heated discussion. Y'all, we had a meeting. We said we were going to do it for weeks and we haven't. But this Thursday, we had a pre-show meeting. What was about an hour or so? And, we said this was the show right here. We should have recorded it. It was really raw, though. Raw as it could be.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I don't think this would fly on YouTube too well. But
Yeah.
it is
that was like-
entertaining.
Races were brought up, and no, I'm just kidding.
No, they weren't.
No,
But
they weren't. No.
Things were said that were, not flattering to people in general.
Yeah, so that was one of those things is that over time, as this podcast or whatever it is we're doing here at Humanetics starts to grow, we talk so much like offline or whatever, especially today's topic, which is tribalism, or the concept of it. The more that we talk about it, the more heated that it gets, and I think that it would be really cool to just stream those things, but only for like members or something, because I don't think otherwise it's like,
Yeah.
so it gets dicey, you know what I mean? It's like
It
trying to
does.
figure
It
out how to build a
does.
boat in the middle of a storm, and then you just get to see the boat kind of when you see us live, but
Hello,
yeah.
Carol. I'm sorry. I just saw Carol. Are you okay? Carol, is everything all right in your area? I mean,
Imagine
she's
that she's like not okay, she's in dire need, and she's like, good evening, hello, and
Please
like,
send a boat.
and we're like, how are you? And she's like, oh, well, I'm actually currently pinned under like tons of rubble, and the water is ever rising. But I just wanted to say hey before I figured this stuff out later. So,
No. But I do. I feel like so bad. I know so many people in Georgia, and I have friends in North Carolina, Florida. I mean, it was rough. Nobody expected this, and there's a whole other. I ain't even gonna say it, y'all. People like me who wear the tinfoil hats. There's a whole lot of stuff on the internet about why that storm took that direction. So there you go.
we're gonna say, oh, they had that big machine under the water, and they pushed the water onto the land or something like that. I don't know.
Not under the water.
No, it wasn't under the water. It was
No.
in the air. They manipulated the weather patterns or something. Hey, who knows? It is 2024. We don't know what is possible, but that is not the topic that we were going to talk about today. But it does kind of it does kind of what is it, like, align with the idea of it. Kind of what we're talking about is a big topic, and like I said a second ago, it's about tribalism. And the thing about that is that it's a mindset that was something that was like integral in early human evolution. It was something that protected us, that helped us, like, essentially move forward as a society. It was great. So socially, it was great for security, resource management, all this stuff. But now it's something that we just kind of do. And of course, right now, with the election being right around the corner, we're all just fighting each other based on political affiliation and almost nothing else. Sometimes, which of course happens it's always a problem, but it happens especially more during the cycle, and then that momentum of like anger and hatred and stuff kind of continues on.
But it's really ramped up this year. As a matter of fact, and I won't say her name, but I reached out to one of my subscribers on my other channel because I haven't heard from her in a few weeks, and she's been on my mind. And we usually talk pretty fairly often. And I was like, "Hey, girl, what's up?" And she was really having a time with this whole political climate. Like it was really wearing on her mentally. And,
Really.
she's like, yeah, I know shouldn't look at it. I don't want to look, but here I am looking at it and just feeling worse and worse. So, I mean, I think well, the last few elections have been really charged, but this one, look, we've got the attempts, to unalive somebody. I mean, this has really heated up.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I mean, for years it has always been like, of course I'm not ancient, I'm not really old, but now I'm old enough to where I've seen lots of presidential cycles kind of come and go. And I remember, like years and years ago, like what was it? Bush and was it Bush and Al Gore or something like that back in the day? Who was it? Al Gore and
Yeah,
somebody?
that was one. Yeah, that was one. That was one of them.
I remember I was more cognitively aware, or at least enough to remember some bits and pieces of it. And I remember that there was still political discourse, and one side was like, this side that doesn't care about the economy, and this one's like, this side doesn't care about global warming and all this. But it was still like civil. But now it may just be because we have so much like uninhibited access to the internet and everybody else's opinions, and
Yeah.
which is something else that is kind of something that I want to bring up here in a little bit. But it's almost as if people are able to connect more with each other, and that has caused more misunderstanding than unity, which is incredibly ironic, I think.
Yeah.
Because that's the dream, right? Is this information superhighways that we all become friends and stuff, but we're just using it to hate each other with like more vigor and passion.
Yeah, and I mean, but
Yeah.
here's the thing. People are and I can even speak for myself. We are passionate about certain things. And so that's I mean, down to our souls. And
Yeah.
so it becomes it's so easy to look at people when you think one issue, and there's so many issues on the platforms that are very divisive, but when you feel so passionately about one thing and then you find out your friend is completely opposite.
Didn't you have a story
How
about that the other day? You mentioned something like that.
it's possible. I don't know what you're referring to.
I think you mentioned this exact scenario where you said that you had respect for somebody and all this, and then you found out that what they believed in or where they were politically like aligned, and you didn't agree. I think you had at that time some particularly choice words, but safe to say that you said that your
Oh, is that what?
um, could we at least say that your opinion of them, did it change overall, or did you just think like, oh, that's a shame, kind of thing?
I guess maybe you could say I said that's a shame. What I actually probably said was in my head of like, boy, I didn't know you were so dumb.
Still pretty tame, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, pretty tame from what I said in our private chat, but
But this was just on political affiliation. This wasn't even like, they said, I believe in this policy or whatever. And you're like, oh, that's silly. They were just like, no, I lean this way. And you're like, oh, I didn't know you were a dumb person. Is that kind of how it felt?
Yeah, I didn't say that though. I kept
Right.
that in my inside
Well,
voice, in
my
my head
question
voice.
is, did you come to the understanding that they were dumb because of what they supported or why they supported? Did you ever ask them why, and their reasoning for why was so dumb that that's why you made that reasoning, or did you make that reasoning beforehand?
I am trying to remember. I see. I can't remember the exact situation, the person. I can't remember. Um, I usually have an idea. And now, look, I can have discussions with people that I disagree with, and that's, that's fine. Um, I like to know why, especially uh, when it's really, how do I say this? When it's morally incorrect, or
Mm,
or at least what I feel like is morally incorrect. But
yeah.
I don't want to lose friendships. And I hope this is why we're doing this. Like, to hopefully hopefully to learn how to navigate in this climate and come out at the end of election season and even longer, maintaining our friendships and relationships with people that you're like me. I'm like, boy, you're dumb. Didn't know you were that
Yeah.
dumb. But but you love them anyway. Like, you don't want the relationship to
Right.
stop.
Essentially, how do you reconcile the difference between, okay, I feel this way and you feel a way that's almost entirely opposed to that? And I almost respect you less because of it. But like, how do you not view another person with, because most people don't even see it that way. Most people will see that someone sits on the other side of the fence and will immediately discredit them or, just write them off a lot of the time.
Yeah.
There are, which I mean, there are a lot of examples of this over history. But I think the concept, so I just kind of want to run through it like real quick, what tribalism is. And that's kind of what this all pertains to. Like I said, it was a survival strategy. It was rooted in early evolution. It was one of the first things that we figured out to do as humans. We were tight-knit groups designed for security and resource control. It helped us defend ourselves against other groups and just raiders and even animals and stuff like that. But primarily, it was really important for social learning and development. All of the civilization that you see that had ever come from anything almost always came from a form of tribalism. Ancient history, all sorts of different groups were great at one particular area, and they would evolve that. And when that civilization would pass away or whatever, other civilizations would look to that and start to incorporate that into their own system. But it was always like a closed system. I think that like altruistic, like even like hippies are like, oh, why can't we all get along, man? We just need to understand each other better, man. Like we just, peace and love kind of thing, And I think that like some people think that we just need understanding, but I think we really need to be able to harmonize, like make our differing viewpoints sing together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
But it's hard. I mean, it's hard when some things. I think the big thing with a lot of people is that we look at it as morally different. You know what I'm
mhm,
saying? So if you let's just take a simple, completely out there. Let's say unaliving somebody. Okay, most people would say that is wrong, but what if the other party said, you know, that this is okay? It- you know, or maybe I should say a different crime. But you know what I'm saying? I'm just trying
or
to
in
think.
like in the context of like the death penalty, for example, some people believe in it, some people don't believe in
Yeah.
it. Some
Yeah.
think that it should never be allowed, and some people think that people are beyond redemption or beyond saving. You know,
Yeah, or just self-defense in general. Someone breaks in your home. Some people think it's wrong to
Hmm.
shoot them.
Not me.
yeah, um, yeah. So go ahead and post your address, and we'll see. We'll put that to practice.
Again, I do not have a problem with that. Actually, there's a law in this state that will protect you most of the time. Hello,
Most of the time.
Samantha Springman. Yeah, it depends on the situation, but I mean, that's my point. I mean, my position on the death penalty was one way for years and years and years, and now I find myself thinking I'm not sure about that. Now, in some cases, I get so angry, so passionate about a certain crime, that was done. I'm like, let him fry, and
Yeah.
but is
Well,
that
so
correct? And
right. Well, so
I have to second guess myself too.
let me ask y'all a couple of questions. I want you. So I'm sure that everyone here either sits red or blue, and if you don't, Like I don't care, honestly. I think that each group has bad ideas and some ideas, or and rarely a good idea. I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot of faith in either side personally. But there are things that I am almost tribalistic about, like, for example, people who oppose, the entire like Twitter culture. I think about as an example of mine. It's kind of hard to conceptualize, but basically, I think that it is difficult to state an opinion in a short form, and that people become animated and like just angry, hateful towards each other very quickly. And so, for example, like one of these things I wanted to mention is, have you ever felt yourself feeling like an in-group bias? These are all, I'm going to kind of list like a couple of things that are like what tribalism tends to lead to, right? And one of these is in-group bias, meaning that people that you already agree with or already align with in your mind are likely to be more correct than people who are not aligned with you, right? Like if you hear a piece of news, so that I wanted to say something real quick about that earlier, is that emotions are defining what we believe right now. By the way, I don't know, like we receive information with massive bias, no matter the source. We'll genuinely think it's true. Yeah, we'll think it's true if it comes from our party, or if it points suspicion or doubt or assumes evil motives or whatever towards the other party.
Yes, something interesting about that is researchers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology looked at more than 126,000 stories tweeted millions of times between 2006 and 2016 before Donald Trump took office, but during the combative presidential campaign. They found that fake news spread through Twitter faster, farther, deeper, and more broadly than the truth in all categories of information. According to the study in Thursday's journal Science, no matter how you slice it, falsity wins out, said co-author Deb Roy, who runs MIT's laboratory for social machines and is a former chief media scientist at Twitter. Twitter funded the story but had no say in the outcome, according to the researchers. The scientists calculated that the average false story takes about 10 hours to reach 1,500 Twitter users versus about 60 hours for the truth. On average, false information reaches 35% more people than true news.
Why do you think that is?
So that was what I was going to say, is that it almost seems, so again, that's why I hate Twitter and short content, but I think it's because of emotions. It's right. Like people aren't necessarily led by like, oh, does this make sense? Is this likely? Is this true? They're just like, I don't like this. So I don't like how, and this is what I think this guy would do. I don't know. I don't have a great example of that, but you know what I mean? I think that a lot of times we just believe something because it sounds right, because we already believed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you think about
that? Platforms like Facebook and Twitter use algorithms that tailor content to reinforce your pre-existing views, creating these digital echo chambers. And the platforms profit from this outrage because the emotional engagement drives the clicks and ad revenue, and all of this polarizes the users, making pulling them into even more extreme tribal identities.
And it only works because of emotions. It doesn't work because people think like, oh, this makes sense or this doesn't make sense. They're like, yeah, no, this is outrageous. I can't believe Trump would do this. I can't believe that Kamala Harris would say this or think like this. I can't believe that, blah, 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 blah.
So do you think, let me ask, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say, okay, would it matter who said it? Who said it? Like, I guess we need to look at the very first biases. Do I believe everything that my political person says? Like, because he says this or she says this, do I believe it? And I'm going to say, for me personally, no, I don't. I am going to gravitate more to it's probably the truth, but I am not going to be opposed to listening to somebody say why it's not the truth. And if you can prove to me it's not the truth, I'm going to be, well, that was a big fat lie.
Well, you're one of the very rare few, probably one of millions.
I'm a thinker.
True. I think part of that probably is also just because you've grown. You're not 20 anymore.
Thank you.
I
I'm
just
old.
mean,
just say it. I'm old.
I'm saying that 20-year-olds are genuinely generally stupid. You know, a lot of
Yeah.
times you don't start to develop like, oh, what is someone else thinking? You know, it's like, for example, so these two things, in-group bias and out-group dehumanization, they often like go hand in hand, right? Like you agree with what people that you agree already know and agree with say, and people that sit on the other side, you're more likely to just not like see them as lower or like inferior, sometimes even subhuman in the case of like relatives and stuff. You know, I know a lot of like a lot liberal leaning folks have a lot of trouble, you know, getting along with their uncle or whatever, because every time they're hanging around with them, they'll start, you know, saying some, you know, MAGA stuff, and they're like, they'll just go to Twitter. My uncle said this, and I just, guys, I need some help. What do I even do here? You know, but you know, I'd really be curious to see the study that I want to be done is non-policy based, just like flat statements that say like, you know, Donald Trump said this. There's like Donald Trump and then whatever, or Kamala Harris said this, and then it turns out that it was actually reversed. That, you know, whatever people are like, oh, that's outrageous. I can't believe Trump would say something so ridiculous, and then it's like, oh, actually,
Yes.
Kamala said that. You know,
I've seen those
like
interviews.
oh, have there been things like that? Because
Yes, there's somebody, and I've seen them on YouTube. They're on the like the person with the microphone on the street, like in busy
That's a
places, saying,
genius idea.
yeah, and they're like, okay, Donald Trump said blah blah blah, and they're like, ah, I hate Trump, you know, blah blah blah, and then they're like, oh well, excuse me, actually it was Kamala Harris, and they've done it both ways, and
yeah,
people are
I would
just
love to see
like,
those. I would love to see this
yeah,
reaction.
they look like they swallowed a bug. Really?
like.
But
I wish I had thought about that sooner. I would have like gotten some quotes, or I would have gotten like some context for that. But I don't have any of that information here with me. But I'm sure you can find those kind of videos. I think it's just very
Yes.
interesting because it's a perfect example of these two things. We see people that we agree with as better and people that we don't as worse, basically. And what that leads to is kind of like the more you fall into that, you start to feel like a fear or paranoia of the other. Especially so, I mean, in my mind, which I dated someone who was in college for a while, and I got to know all their friends, and you know, the thing is, you know, when you're a woman and you're young, I think there's a lot of things to be fearful of, and I think a lot of those issues can be lightly linked to political affiliation in a way, like liberalism, and I don't think the word is able to be said, but like pro-choice. I think you know that whole argument, those whole things, and stuff like that. You know, you have to really consider it when you're a man or whatever. You don't have to consider those things. You don't have to know what it's like. What am I going to do if I get pregnant? Like, I've never had to think about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what I do care when I see someone else dealing with that. I do think about it. Like, how would I react? What system would I lean to? What do I have to protect me if I'm in a situation like that? And like living in a world where it's so like just diametrically like charged towards each other, you almost feel like you're forced to lean one way or the other. And so you start to feel like a paranoia or a fear of the other. And traditionally, these were like primal instincts that portray the outgroup as dangerously threatening. And it's now amplified by political rhetoric and propaganda, and it leads to a siege mentality, which I don't know if you have ever been under siege before, but imagine you're in a walled city, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the opposing nations has just started using trebuchets against you. And for months and months, every couple hours or something, you'll feel like a great rumbling where a massive boulder has been thrown near your house. You know, you're just constantly fearing, you're under siege. You know, a lot of sieges, they don't even attack. They just stand outside the walls. They don't let you leave, and they'll periodically throw things at you. Imagine the kind of stress and discomfort that would cause you day to day. And a siege mentality is a very real thing, and I think that it definitely applies here. When you were younger, Silky, did you ever feel that like a fear or paranoia of what someone might do based on their political affiliation or what they kind of stood for?
On their political affiliation. That's
Or I mean, even take it.
yes. Yes. I did. I mean, not like a fear like, a personal siege, but I think we all have from time to time because we're like, if this person gets in office, I all this stuff is going to happen. And some of the stuff, if the person I did not want in office gets in office, sometimes some really bad things happen, but it's not ever as bad as I imagine. But yeah, you kind of think that, well, and I think that goes along with people with the division because in actuality, it's going to take more than just the president. It's going to be have to be the whole Congress and stuff like
Yep.
that. It's not a dictatorship. Now, am I happy about the situation that we find ourselves in, the economy and you know stuff? No. There are a lot of issues I have with our present situation, but that is not literally it's not just one man's fault. It's not.
Sure. And that's the hardest thing for people to come to terms with. And for a second, I was hoping you would say, yeah, I love this current economical thing. And was it one man's fault? Absolutely. No, but no, but
I'm not a DA, okay?
no, I know. I just, I need some like really hard opinions for people to stand on sometimes and be like, really, that's interesting. And everyone in the chat goes, we're all like, yeah, we agree that this person's wrong, right? And then we all look at, well, maybe we'll get some guests in here or something sometime. But Samantha Springman said something a while ago. I want a little bit of clarification real quick. No brain, but you have to worry about being in a forced position where you would know that there's a part of you that could be wiped away regardless of how you feel about it. That's not right either. I would love to know if you could do me a favor personally and expand on that a little bit more. I might get a chance to respond to you there.
I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, well, there's just some words I can't say, so it's not going to make any sense. But there are certain things that could happen that could wipe away part of us. You know,
mind control.
No, well, no, but I wasn't necessarily thinking about that. But
is the MK project blacklisted to talk about on YouTube or?
Well, I don't know. Carol is the one that is Carol Stanhope is the one that.
Oh, really?
Yes. And
interesting.
And let me tell you, I think I have been shadow banned on my Silky channel, and I think it's also affected my other one.
Womp womp.
But that happened a year ago, and you know what I did about it? I did another one. That's what I did.
You're supposed to wait until you have millions of subscribers, and then you can start talking about stuff like that.
Yeah,
so,
I don't
real
care.
quick. So after fear and all this comes the scapegoat effect, which is, you mentioned it, that it's not the fault of one person, but it is so easy to believe that it is the fault of one person. You can see this other group as the cause for broad and complex problems. And you end up wasting energy not solving anything. You end up wasting energy just yelling at them or being upset or going to taking to Twitter and posting about why these things are wrong and all this. But your anger being put on the members of society or whatever, that's not gonna. Whose opinion has ever been changed because someone told them that they're wrong?
Look, if you can prove it. Prove to me why I'm wrong. I'll listen.
I can tell you from firsthand experience that also doesn't work most of the time.
Because there's no proof.
Yeah. Margaret said something, the easy route. It was him. It's so much easier to say it was him than go like, well, actually, you see, the macroeconomics is quite a broad concept. And what you'll see is that you have many different facets that all kind of interlink together. And on one side, you have no one cares. Shut up. It's like, he did it. It's so much easier to just be like, this guy caused the problem. Book close. And then next year we can vote for somebody else. It's often how it feels.
Okay, Samantha did answer your question, sort of, without, and that's kind of what I was thinking too, Samantha. I just couldn't say it. You put it in a very nice, good way.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah. I see what you're saying. If you got a female in the family way and you found out about it, but she decided to wipe away that part of you growing inside, men have zero say so. I see what you say. That's it's unfortunately it's YouTube policy that has to be such a convoluted statement. But I see what you're saying, and I agree, and it's really tough because on one hand there aren't, I don't think, like the problem, I think, and I'll just say this, I think that there are very bad problems, and I think the biggest issue is that people are so busy fighting that we can't come to an agreement. I think there are good ideas and policies on both sides of the board, but we're more like, again, this whole concept of tribalism, it's not about collaboration. It's not about unity or harmonization. It's just like, well, I'm blue and this is where I stand. And it's like, you have like a few good points and red has a few good points. Like if there's any way we could combine these things, but let's be honest. I think that it's a tool used against us so that we don't have to spend money solving these issues, but we can talk about that later as we speculate.
Well,
Okay, go ahead.
I think the biggest problem, in my opinion, is in fact that no one really cares about politics, or I mean, like a large majority of people don't care, or the people that do care have a massive lack of understanding of differing opinions, and that's why a lot of people get dehumanized when these debates are talked about, and I think also a good example of something very similar was the fall of Rome. So imagine a once mighty empire crumbling from the inside out, not due to a fierce enemy, but because its own leaders couldn't stop fighting. That was the story of the Roman Empire. As military generals and politicians battled for power, they ended up weakening the empire's core instead of uniting against external threats. They tore each other apart, making it easy for invaders to swoop in and take control. So the Romans were too busy fighting themselves to notice the barbarians at the gate.
I think we could say that about today,
Oh
actually.
yeah. I think that conspiracy theorists among us may say that the issue has
Tread carefully.
I think that it's more because I agree sometimes in this way. So I'm not saying that, like, by the way, nothing I ever say really is a side. I just love to argue, but
That's
I think
true. That is, y'all should know that it was the truest thing that Bungler has ever said. He would argue with a step.
yeah, I argue for things I simply don't
Tree
believe
stump.
in constantly. So don't ever take it personally if I do. But I do think that it's interesting that it is so much easier. So we can say, oh, it's it's 2024, blah, 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 blah. The psychology is understood really well. And we can look at the fall of the Roman Empire and we can see that, like, yeah, there was a lot of fighting. And so it caused it to be able for something massive to just crush the entire empire without, like, they were already defeated by the time anyone got there. And I think that right now, a lot of theorizers will say that right now it's purposeful, that we are the Roman Empire fighting each other, and the barbarians would be the government. But they are, instead of just trying to topple us, that they are using this discourse and division to control us. And I think that in some ways that's possible. I think that propaganda definitely does lend into that. But I often wonder, because I've never been in a political arena, I've never been like, a member of Congress or like in the office and all that. Like, I wonder how much of their thinking does revolve around their political stance, whether, Republican, Democrat, red, blue, whatever, or if they're literally just trying to figure out the best way to attain more power in their own office. And it's just, I guess the thing is that people are not black and white, and it's easier. People aren't black and white, and but we're almost designed to categorize things as such. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Actually, one of the truest movies, and y'all gonna laugh at me, but it's really disgusting. It was really disgusting to me. But the movie Legally Blonde 2, the second one, where she is in Congress. Okay, you gotta love Reese Witherspoon. But anyway, what disturbed me about that movie is I knew it was so true. It was basically, I'll support this if you support that. Like, I will back your bill if you back mine. And sometimes the only way to get something done is to back something you don't believe in. And this is just horse pucky. All of it.
Brain
Yeah.
bungler. Didn't you tell me one time about how you were watching the House of Cards and how it was something pretty similar to that? How everyone kind of owed each other a favor, and
Oh yeah. Oh, that was so long ago because Kevin Spacey got canceled, and I was like, well, they're never going to finish the show, so I'm not going to finish it. And I'm like, deleted all that information from my mental hard drive. But if I recall correctly, yeah, House of Cards was basically a show about, it was like it was actually kind of bizarre. It was well acted, despite your opinion on Kevin Spacey or whatever. Everyone in the public sense appeared friendly and personable, and as though they really cared about their own beliefs. And then the moment he gets behind a closed door, he just turned into like just an evil man. Like he's just full of rage. He's scheming and plotting, and you see that everywhere. That everything is connected. That essentially in the show, all these different politicians essentially wanted each other to perish so that they could get their way or move forward or whatever, and everyone owed each other. And it was just an incredibly dense system where it wasn't about getting things to work well. It was about everyone struggling for power in their own way. And I think if you look at the Roman Empire and you look at how that was also the case then, and then for us, of those that go, the government controls everything, it's like they can't really control themselves, it would seem, a lot of the time. So I don't know. I don't know.
Can we take a step back? Because because I don't think, did we ever define tribalism for
that was
people
the
who
first
might not?
thing. That was the first thing we did.
Was it?
Yeah.
Where was
Yeah.
I?
I don't know. Probably lost in your coffee or
Probably.
But,
Go ahead.
Speaking of
But-
what you just said, how they would go, they would give a speech and be so charismatic and go behind, as soon as they get off the stage, they're like full of anger. And I think that a lot of people have suspected like the secret life, and obviously a lot of it's not even that secret anymore, like this ongoing like Diddy investigation, has revealed like some of the kind of like parties that a lot of these like elites have attended, and then this sex trafficking, and like it might sound wild, but like there's many like other cases of this. And so I think it's more than just the people versus the government. I think also like the like any elite, like big corporation, like super wealthy, like billionaire, like I think this is just my opinion, maybe I'm just being a conspiracy theorist, but I think they're all like involved, and it's more than just like red and blue. I think it is almost like the lower class and middle class, like the American people, the working class, against the overarching like capitalist elites. And I'm not completely dogging capitalism. I think everyone deserves a chance to thrive, especially if you work and you're innovative and but I think like the overarching like new surveillance they use to monitor everyone, and just the endless exploitation of
it's a whole road to travel down. And I think that we definitely if not next week, definitely in one of the coming weeks, I'd like to because this channel is what I want to talk about mainly is like how to overcome yourself and how to see things. But I think part of that definitely does come down to like not burying your head in the sand about things that are happening in the world. And I think just to momentarily point at what you just said, that everyone is striving for power, and that those who don't really need any more power typically can get along pretty well. And it just seems that their motives are less than pure. But we can talk about that some other time with like Epstein or whatever. That whole thing and everything that you're talking about. But it really does seem that this tribalism idea is something that we really do as the lower class, the working class, middle class, even higher middle class. We are really just forced to fight each other, because if we were able to stand together and all this, I think the biggest thing is that those in power aren't strong enough to stand against all of us. And so that might be why some of this propaganda is just kind of so flippantly tossed about, Because one of the things, again, so the scapegoating effect, which is something I wanted to mention, is easier to just say, hey, that's that guy's fault. It's this party's fault, blah, 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 blah. But the biggest thing I think is group polarization, which is basically radicalization, where like a group of people can come to crazy assumptions and beliefs that even one or two or three people on their own would never come to. That's actually how ISIS came to be. I don't know if you guys know much about that, but essentially, it was this group that it got to the point where violence showed your devotion to the cause and your commitment over, actual beliefs or anything that had more value to the group. And that's the thing about tribalism, is that you find yourself losing your identity to the group, where originally humans found identity in the group and then individualism afterwards. But it's harder. It's harder and harder to find individualism because everyone has a group. There's a group for everything. It's like, how do you be an individual when there are like thousands of groups for furries? I say this all the time, but why? I think most people can agree that that's absurd, that that's crazy. But some people are like, no, yeah, like I like to feel like I'm a dog or a cat or whatever, and thousands of other people will be like, amen or whatever. I don't even know what they say. Like me, yeah. I don't know. I've never really, maybe I should hang out in some of those groups and find out what they talk about. But,
maybe the solution is just to engage in as many groups as you can. But also to stop seeing people as such like one-sided people, and like me, I skateboard, I play music. I'm very interested in politics. I'm a lot of different things, but people can categorize me as, like a white guy, or a skateboarder, or, and they fail to see the different aspects of what makes me unique.
it's one of the harder things to do, to see someone as more than one. Again, because humans are so built for categorization or black and white statements. I mean, again, when we look at this political, charged atmosphere, like it's almost hard to breathe. We literally see people from other parties as one dimensional. We see good or bad. Like, oh, you're a Republican, you're a bigot, or oh, you're a liberal, you're immoral, or you're a Republican, you're oppressive, or you're a liberal, you're weak, you're a snowflake, or you're a Republican, you're phobic of everything, you're racist or whatever, or if you see you're a liberal, you don't understand purity, you don't understand how to be, what morals and traditions stand like, and it's like, again, you just mentioned, which it's kind of hard to expand on, but the concept that someone could be a skateboarder and also be really fascinated with politics, for most people, you're like, I don't know, that doesn't make any sense to me. We see people as one or the other. And it's because it's easier that way. It makes more sense that way. Tropes and themes and stuff like that. It doesn't really go along with any of our natural evolutionary biological functioning processes, right? It has never been helpful for the human brain to see other people as complicated. It's so much easier to say that person bad, our person's good, and who you believe in. And so you get wrapped up and confirmation bias is one thing that it starts with. It will consume you. And symbiotically behaving content will reinforce your beliefs, and it'll fill you with outrage. Colton mentioned it earlier, but it's cyclical. The content is created in order to invoke a negative emotion. It's what drives engagement and clicks and stuff. And we latch onto that readily because it makes us feel like we're right. And it makes us feel justified and stuff like that.
Okay, but and we've talked about this before, the impact of social media, but in an age where you can connect with your tribe, whether your tribe is in, I consider part of my tribe to be in New Zealand because I have good friends over there. But we connect so much, but the divide is so much stronger now that we don't even tend to listen to other people. Like, whereas in the past, we may have looked at, our friends and neighbors, and the part that we didn't agree with was just a small part of who we are. Now we can get online, we can get on Twitter, whatever, and we just follow the people that are like us.
Yeah.
And it's
Which
just growing. It's growing and growing.
Yeah.
yeah. And sorry, I made a comment under your name by mistake here. This whole stream. Uh,
That's
yeah.
because it's streaming to my channel. That's why.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll figure that one out. But this is kind of a throwaway statement, right quick. But she said, Melanie Lynn said, furries no different than sports fans, which I mean, that's like a very straightforward, but it has a lot of nuance to that statement. And I would love to
Yes,
delve
it
into that,
does.
but I feel like that would be kind of a waste of time. But I definitely agree. And it's
For
very
this
funny.
one, for this stream, it would be off topic. But yeah, that is actually that
Yeah.
is great, Melanie.
But no, I kind of got lost in the sauce at that moment, and I missed your overall point. Basically, that wasn't it that we just kind of get trapped in this cycle?
Well, yeah, instead of being more tolerant before social
Ah,
media, before all of this, you had back in the day, okay? Again, since you brought it up so succinctly, I am old. Back in the day, we had three TV stations, okay? ABC, NBC, and CBS. And this is what we saw, this is what we were fed, and it didn't okay, so we didn't have all of these other avenues to all these other
mm,
opinions. So the people that we interacted with were in real life. And you might have, like, if you found out, like, you could be barbecuing with your neighbors every weekend, then political season rolls around, and all of a sudden, if you're a Republican, you find out they're Democrats, there might be a little tension. But you ended up most of the time working it out over time because these were
you know
your
the person,
people.
and
Yes,
yeah,
that's your tribe.
they're
They
your
live in your
family
neighborhood.
first.
Yes. And
Right,
and
right.
so but now we don't have to. We sit in our houses and we're just going to the groups that we naturally agree with. So we're not even listening to another opinion.
Well, I think the reason is because tribalism mindset falls lower on the developmental pattern of thinking list than intrinsically asking like, is this okay? Is this right? And stuff like that. And the problem with especially, and it may just be a new age thing. It may be something that starts to phase out over time as this current generation starts to grow up and get a little bit older. But right now, we literally do. We're stuck in confirmation bias. It's cyclical. It traps us, and then we get stuck into algorithmic identity, which immobilizes us. We actually have less control over our thoughts and biases than we ever believed before. And even seeing things that conflict with our beliefs now causes massive upheaval, like internally, if we ever examine it. So instead, we file it away and forget that it ever happened because it's just easier to deal with that way. With emotions and everything tied up, you don't, again, you're just like, oh, well, I don't know how to deal with this situation here. I'm just going to pretend that it didn't happen so that I can stay mad. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think, which I mean, I don't, I don't know where everyone stands on, Trump and stuff like that, but there are definitely things that he has done that I'm like, wow, that is what? And it seems like a lot of people as a whole, or at least in media that I've been able to see, and examples of MAGA folks or whatever. Again, I don't care at all, but I think that it's like you can definitely agree that he has like maybe he has like I think I like him because it's like, hey, he might destroy everything, and that's better than what we got going on right now. But there has to be a line where you draw like, okay, I saw that he did, he was like, he was an SA perpetrator. He, maybe not be a very good businessman. He may have some ties that we don't know about. Like there may be some of these things that are true, maybe that are some aren't. And I don't think the key is to prove whether they were right or wrong. I think the key is to not look at anybody like a messiah, and it's to just, develop your own opinion, personally. But, that's a very aggressive statement, and I'm sorry to bring it up.
No, I agree. I agree. And I'm registered Republican. I always have been, but I've said it before, I will vote for Trump. However, what was that? Did you just give me the finger?
No, I was just trying to fix my camera. Anyway, you said you
Oh,
will vote.
that's
However,
not the way it looked. Okay, but however, okay, clarification,
don't lose your train of thought.
context. No, I'm
Keep
not.
going.
Even though I am going to vote for Trump, I do not view him as the savior. Okay. I have a lot of reservations about him in a lot of ways. Do I think he's the best person for the job? You know, yeah. I mean, I think he proved that in his previous presidency, that he did a lot of good things. And I think economically and strategically, as far as world power and position, I think it's important that we have a strong leader. But do I view him? No, I'm not worshiping Trump. No.
Yeah, I think the problem too is that we don't necessarily get to choose. Like, who is the actual best person for the job? Probably some dude on a farm in Kentucky or something, right?
Yes,
Like
probably. Yeah.
it's like it's or someone in a lab in California who is like very removed from bias and stuff like that. But who do we get? Who do we get to choose from? Well, this might be my camera is not cooperating. I'm sorry about that, guys. But so let me continue down this list because this is kind of a pattern, right? Or a downward spiral. It starts with confirmation bias, and then your identity starts to get wrapped up in everything. Then
Hey,
there we are. We get validated tribal instincts, which means we were feeling this way already, and everything that we see that confirms this will now make we'll start to perceive any opposition as a threat. The thing is that the tribalism mentality, again, it came to get to being to protect your group from other groups, and anyone who's on the outside, even if you don't know where they stand, and especially if you do, even disagreements start to feel like true opposition, start to feel like true threatening behavior. And what this will do is it will make you subconsciously cause rifts everywhere that you go. I know that is kind of like a difficult thing, but hostility from one source breeds contempt in all areas. The more that you start to feel like hatred towards one group or whatever, you'll start to see images or themes or smells from that group than on people that maybe don't even fit in that. But it affects your baseline mood and behavior, especially in a season like this where, again, everything is supercharged and all this. And if you've been falling into this, like, again, one side or the other mindset, and a lot of people do, maybe not you guys and maybe not the folks in chat, but a lot of people do. And what happens again is you'll just start to feel like an animosity in general, like feel threatened by all of these opposing views and all this. I don't know if you, which I think I mentioned this briefly before, so I can kind of continue on, but we mentioned how sometimes we felt like kind of like paranoia or fear from a group that is just not ours, right?
Yeah.
I mentioned this.
Well, okay, let me interject here. If you
Okay.
are identifying as like a cougar furry and you are acting in such a way, I may feel compelled to sleep with my shotgun. I mean, yeah, I don't know. And maybe a furry would never do that. And I'm thinking not, but what do I know?
So that's, I love this.
I mean, seriously.
I love how my offhanded comment kind of got us into like normal people versus furries, If nothing else, honestly,
I identify as a cat.
So listen, during September 1st, 2001, I think the numbers are actually not allowed to be said, but that great and terrible event, the people, from all stories that I've heard, the people had come together. That was one of the best times to be alive in America, was that there was not really any political division, that there wasn't any talks of racism and stuff like that. Which again, racism is another example of tribalism. But at that time, we were almost all became united against what we perceived to be the enemy, which was like a good form of tribalism. I think one of the quickest ways to unite any group of people is to give them a common enemy. You were around during that time. How did you feel about being alive during that period? Did it feel like everyone got along? Did it feel like people were even friendlier to each other?
During what period?
Right after September 1st.
Oh, September 1st. Yes. Absolutely. The thing I remember is there was always been political divide, okay? And always differences of opinion on this issue and that. But that one event, and you don't want to get me started on September 1st, but that one event for a short period of time, everybody, I have never seen, like they sold out of American flags. Like you couldn't even buy them at Walmart. That's what everybody had, a flag everywhere. There was so much unity. Now it didn't last very long, but for that moment, yes, absolutely. Everybody loved everybody. Everybody, we felt like we were all in the same boat. And it didn't matter if you were a Democrat, Republican. We didn't even ask. We didn't care. Everybody was loving everybody.
Yeah. Um, which I want to speculate here in a little bit. How to unite, and I'll come up with a crazy scenario about that later. So where tribalism normally gives you the ability to, which again, I think the way that we're doing this might be a little convoluted, and I'm sorry for that. This was, my structure, so I'm working on that. But we originally use it to develop socially, especially as children. I think one of the things, Colton, do you have that quote, or I wrote it down? There was that study. It was like 9 months after birth, infants' heart rate goes up after seeing a stranger.
Yeah. Do you want me to show that?
No, I
Here,
don't have that.
I'll
That's
show
me.
it real quick. Yeah.
That's me and all my notes. I wasn't prepared for you to do this.
Okay. All right. Hold on.
Every time. All right. And I was trying to move it.
Okay. Wait. I think it's this one. Can y'all see that?
I do find it interesting that everyone's been arguing about politics in the comments while the whole stream was about why that's
But
dangerous to do.
here's the thing. It's okay. It's okay to have different opinions. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody
I mean,
is nobody's being real disrespectful, and it's okay. Like you have to. Even we have different opinions. And y'all would be wrong, but
wow.
I know, right? But no, this says, and this, let me just show you. This is an article from the Wales, September 23rd, 2022. Humans are not tribal. This is a rebuttal saying that why we're not. But yeah, it says that by 9 months of age, infants' heart rates go up when they see strangers. But what counts as a stranger depends on who the infant has seen, heard, and interacted with previously. And basically, this article is going on to say that we're not necessarily born tribalistic. And I think it's somewhere, I did have a Piaget's stages of cognition. I think it's somewhere between 7 and 11, if I'm not mistaken, when we start to get more tribalistic.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think it's around 6 or 7 years old that we start to identify a lot more with groups and group identities, and then around 11 or 12, around the age right before puberty, people start getting more rebellious and developing their own individualistic qualities, according to the study.
So it depends on it depends on the person. And so I have this, which I'm going to go ahead and bring this up. This is something that I probably will be using intermittently for the foreseeable future. Let's see here. Let me show this. I don't know if you can see all this here. But what we have are this is spiral dynamics. This was actually created by several different researchers, psychological doctors of their field. This chart has many different layers and pieces to it. But you'll see that this basically goes from 1 to 9 as far as cognitive development, and that the tribal order was on the second level. And the second level is literally just the first stage after knowing what you want. Stage 1, I see, feel, smell, and hear through my senses. Stage 2, I know that other people and animals also have senses and desires and feelings and so on. And there's a lot of things that I'll like to bring up at some point or whatever. But those levels basically, it's like the third level is just knowing how to interact because of those. So you know what you feel, and then you know that other people feel things. And the third level is just knowing how to handle that interaction. And then the fourth one is the ability to go, is this right, what I'm doing? And the problem is that a lot of people don't ever engage that fourth step to ever say, like, is it right? Or to ever actually, that's almost where we start to classify thinkers and stuff like that. Because it's just easier. It's just easier to know what you want, know what other people want, and use that to get what you wanted in the first place.
So you're telling us that when we are into tribalism for things like this, we are way down on the level of, we are just barely out of survival. We are at level 2. We are really, really dumb.
Well, sort of, yeah.
As far as developmentally.
Sure, yeah.
Wow.
Colton, what were you going to say?
Also don't think it's as much, I don't think that's really understanding what other people want as much as it's learning how to manipulate other people's behaviors. And that's something that like salesmen do a lot. You know, like they don't, maybe the best salesman will like really understand what somebody wants and help them find it. But most overwhelming majority of salesmen don't do that. They use strategies like particularly to get people to do certain things and act on emotion. That's what drives their business.
Yeah, you were in sales.
I was, and I got out of it because of that, because that was the only way, much to my chagrin, I suppose, is that people don't make purchases or make big decisions based on like, is this logical for me? I would take what they said they needed. I would understand everything I could about their lifestyle and what they wanted, and then I would combine that. I would find a way to put them to make a connection on what they could afford. And I would go through the list and we'd do all of this, that, and the other. And people just would be so hesitant towards the end. They would be like, oh, this seems to be perfect. This is, my price range, and this is everything that I said that I needed. And it's even like the same color that I wanted, but I just need to think about it. And I think the reason is because people, which I, again, did not realize until much later, is that people don't activate this higher thinking portion of their brain very often. They don't think about a lot of things, which was a very difficult realization to come to. And then when I started to transition into just being like, yeah, this is the best car ever. It's like really fast. It's like, it gets great gas mileage. It's perfect for you. And like, just ignore everything else. Like basically make sure that they were listened to enough, like slightly, but then everything else was just like hyping them up, getting them ready. Those people would pay almost any price for a vehicle that they would come in for like a red SUV and like leave in like a silver sedan, like most of the time. And when I came to that realization, I had to get out of sales because I could not stand the kind of person that I had to be, or would have to maintain being to be successful in that. But that is about level 3, and people really do only act on emotion. And we see that again a lot with the political cycles and stuff like that. I think that propaganda does not make sense to be made on logical basis. I think that it is much more beneficial to the parties that create it to just be like, man, bad. Look at you guys remember? I remember like 2010 era. They would do like this crazy thing. They would literally like have like a TV commercial where they'd be like, I don't know. I can't even think of a name. George Bush voted for this because he hates babies. And then like morph him into like a devil. And there'd be like flames in the background. And it just like, people would be screaming like, oh no, George Bush, please. Why would you do this? And like, it just like, or whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's not very like logical. Like, I don't really know what that means about his policies, but people like, you'd see on both sides. They'd draw like devil mustache and all this stuff. They'd like morph his face. Great. You guys remember those, right?
I don't remember that.
Maybe not to that extent, but there were definitely some of those like that. Yeah, I know. I literally remember watching a commercial where they in real time drew like a devil mustache and like devil horns on a woman congressman or something, and they're like, whoever voted for higher taxes, she hates the working man, and then it would just be like cut to gray and like a devil mustache on. I'm like, really?
That stuff is still happening to this day. I don't know if there was a famous picture that went around not that long ago. It was a picture of like God like in the clouds, Trump sitting there in the clouds, and God like coming down like, like holding his shoulder, like, y'all well done, sir.
I missed that one too.
Yeah, so it's just Trump like coming down from the clouds, and God's like has his hand, is like, "Well done, my good and faithful servant," or whatever, or something like that. I mean, yeah, it works both ways. It does. It works both ways. And again, it's like it just feeds into emotions and stuff. And it's like, I think the hardest part is that it hurts your brain. It is not fun to think critically about things. Because something I jotted down later on is that most Americans lack the ability or time to understand the depths of political nuance. And governmental psychologists understand that emotionally charged propaganda is more effective anyway and cost effective. I think that is one of the biggest problems, is that it's just easier to go with how you feel than it is to go with things that make sense, because there are a lot of things that I logically believe in that don't make me feel any type of way at all. And it's like, so I really don't care about it anymore. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I think the problem is that we don't look at people holistically when it is political season or whatever season it is that is causing us to divide. Is just because and I know what I said in our private conversations for this show, but we don't look at them and say, okay, this we may really, really disagree on this point. And this might actually be a season that we don't talk as much, if this is what you want to talk about, or just let's take it off the table. But that person might also be a really great person in every other area. But
Yep.
we disagree so much that we feel a certain hatred and bias against them because of one certain thing, and that is wrong.
I literally have that written down, that anger and hatred is now enveloping you. This came right after tribal instincts and stunted mental development, lack of critical thinking. Anger and hatred now is enveloping you. You fear and despise your oppressors, and simple disagreements become elevated. Common ground doesn't exist with these people for you outside a few minutes of interaction at Thanksgiving. And even at that, it's like, maybe you just sit on the other end of the table and talk to your cousin or something instead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let me just bring this in, for example, on my channel, Southern Tea, there is a certain person that comes into my chat, has been a guest on my show several times. And this person gets so much hate because there is one area, and I'm not even going to say a gender. There is something that has come up, and I would say I don't agree with it either. As far as, this is not a good thing in my opinion, but this is a subscriber that I really like. I just genuinely like them. Do I like the way they feel about a certain thing? No. And if we want to have a private conversation about it, I will tell you I don't agree. I think you're wrong. But if I just looked at that one part, and that's why a lot of times when this person comes in my chat, people get mad and they start bullying because they're like, but you blah blah blah, you're a blah blah blah.
Yeah.
That may be so, but that
Hmm.
doesn't mean that that person is bad all the way across the board. And I understand and recognize that.
So, I mean, I'm kind of going out of order now. I mean, I definitely wanted to go like, just down the page, but I mean, this is fine too. I have written down here later on that everyone who has a political leaning, like everyone who feels a certain way, all of these leanings they originate from a personal experience or how they're directly affected by something. People who, I mean, almost 100% of the time, they'll feel a type of way because of how they've been affected or how they personally feel about something. And in line with that, or whatever, connected to that, is that some people, wait, where are we at here? Observing others' perspectives is a skill that will protect you in many areas and also forge new paths in others. Just the ability to observe other people's perspectives. Not take them on as your own, but just the ability to do that. You can't possibly know everything, and devoting attention to the feelings that led someone to the way they feel will always, every single time, have some golden nugget of corn in their overall shit sandwich, if you know how to look for it.
I don't want to see corn.
If you have to eat a shit sandwich, I bet you're really happy to find that nugget of corn.
No.
Yeah.
I
This is on wheat bread, by the way. This isn't on white bread. It's not going to be a good sandwich.
I like wheat bread. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's true.
Unleavened then. I don't know.
There is actually a Christian principle that talks about this as far as finding, and this was something that was taught from a certain church, and I 100% agree with this, that everybody has gold inside of them. Like they have nuggets or diamonds or whatever inside of them somewhere. Sometimes it takes a bit to find it, but the whole purpose of this teaching was to look, disregard the other things and look for that one piece of gold or that one diamond that lays inside everybody and nurture it and expand it, make it bigger.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. I think we don't do that anymore. It's easier to hate and to be divided than it is,
Right.
because for me to find that nugget in somebody else, or to find that piece of corn in the sandwich, it takes work.
Sometimes it
takes
can be
work.
emotionally exhausting, emotionally draining.
Yes.
Imagine, for example, I was talking about those girls, young women earlier, how especially college aged and all this stuff, for them to have to sit down with their grandpa or their uncle or whatever and talk about their grandma's like, or their grandpa's like, very pro life or whatever, and they have to go because. Again, I mean, and we can talk about this in a little bit. We'll devote the last 30 minutes or so to speculation and stuff. But imagine how emotionally draining and exhausting that would be if you, every day of your actual reality, you have to fear men. You have to be afraid of what might happen if you're pregnant and you don't have a system to move forward or whatever. How do you talk to somebody who's literally sitting from a male perspective, who was born in the 50s or whatever, who's like, God gave you immoral, impure woman. God gave you this child, and by God, you're going to raise it, or whatever. It's like, that's like, especially they're not offering an attempt to understand you. Why would you do the same for them? You know what I mean? And that's one of the hardest things, is to be the one to make that choice, to decide to withstand the brunt of it so that you can at least begin to see why they feel the way they do. Sometimes they literally just feel that way because their pappy taught them, and their pappy's pappy taught them to feel that way. But so many times you'll see a different perspective on things that are like, hey, maybe this isn't like, economically viable. Maybe this isn't morally a good decision. Maybe instead of, banning, maybe there should be systems in place. How about it, Mr. Republican, that say, if you're going to force a child to be born, then why don't you create a system in which you can deliver a care package or give them funding or any of these things? That's something that I've been frustrated about for many years, is that Republicans, they say, all babies must live. Then when they're born, they're like, screw them. It's like the moment that they come out, that's like, you're on your own. Good luck. I'll see you later. It's like, how do you disjoint those things? How do you separate that? Like, how do you compartmentalize those different issues? It drives me crazy. But at the same time, it's like, it's wrong to commit murder as well. So it's like, but it's nuanced. And again, there are ideas from both sides that need to be applied. But being stuck on one side makes it so that you can't really see a good choice or a good solution to these things. And so let me quickly, I know I'm kind of yapping here, but let me quickly just wrap up this list so we can start talking about like how to fix this or how to overcome these feelings. You start with confirmation bias. And then you get stuck into identity or algorithmic identity nowadays. Then your tribal instincts are now vilified. Opposition is now threatening you. Anger and hatred then begins to envelop you. You fear and despise your oppressors. And then solidarity with your group now feeds on animosity towards those opposed. You aren't looking for understanding or harmony. In fact, your identity is conditionally tied to the outrage you feel towards libtards or whoever else is standing in your way. It is what defines you. And then finally, you're now isolated from many people who might otherwise have loved you. Ironically, in your fervor for enforcing your group's beliefs and strengthening your party's outreach, you've isolated yourself by way of disagreeable and irreconcilable self-standing. Congrats. It's a path that kind of just leads to total emptiness and loneliness. I don't think that there really is, a way outside of that to find connection or to find love, because your identity is almost based entirely on the hatred that you have towards anyone who doesn't agree with you. I don't know how you can have empathy or how you can be loved by your granddaughter or whatever, if that's the way that you're stuck, What do you think? You think there's a path for that kind of tribalistic hatred or whatever to actually develop into something positive?
There needs to be. I would think so. But how? How do we find that? Like, what? I think the first thing before you go through the list, and I know you probably have an answer to this, but step one would be finding the motivation to do it, because most people are just like, I believe what I believe, and this is what the Bible says, or this is what, my daddy says, or whatever, and this is my group of people. And so when you have that kind of mentality of, you know, exclusivity, is that what I'm trying to say?
I'd almost call it xenophobia in a way.
Well,
Sure.
sorta, but when you have this mentality, what you have to find a motivation to, why should I change? Why should I be the one to change?
Well, that's a tough one to answer, and I think that is kind of one of the reasons I wanted to discuss this topic, is because a lot of people don't have that motivation. A lot of people don't see any error in the way that they are, but it's tough. Basically, motivation only comes out of pain, really. I mean, if you find yourself like, as an unrelated example, but my father was a very particular kind of distant, uncaring type of guy for the majority of my childhood and our life and everything. And now, all of a sudden, he's like, family is the only thing that matters. Why don't you understand? It's all about family. And I love you and I love your brother and I always have. And I'm proud of y'all. I'm like, yeah, well, how about from when I was ages 5 to like 25? Was that was that a sentiment that you shared? Why is it all of a sudden now that your knees hurt and you're like, oh no, death beckons to me. What legacy do I have left? Now all of a sudden it's different, I think it's the same thing. That mentality would have helped me a lot growing up, but it wasn't something he had until he felt that it needed to change. So really, that is a good question. How do you find motivation without, having a cripplingly terrible end and trying to fix it later on? Any suggestions?
I mean, I think unlike September 1st, I think that motivated us to see our need for each other. At this particular time in history, we don't see a need for each other. However, if the worst, if it was the apocalypse, or something like that, and all communications, your Twitter, your Insta, everything's cut off. So all your cronies online that you all agree with each other, you don't have that access, then you're going to be going to your neighbor's house. At least that's the way we do it in the South. We're going to be checking on our neighbors. We're going to be saying, hey, are y'all okay? But we don't see the need to do that. I knew my neighbor when I moved in, and then I don't know what happened. I didn't talk to her for a while. It was winter, and then I saw a for sale sign. I don't know. I don't know what happened to her. Now there's new people over there, and I don't even know who bought the house. But in the event that, we lost all communications and power or whatever, I would go over there and say, hey, wait, what do you
But
need?
otherwise, it's too weird, right? It's
Right,
too strange.
right. Yeah, I'm not going to go over there right now in times of, quote, prosperity and say, hey, y'all need
Mm,
anything? They'd be looking at me like, huh? Who are you?
yeah.
You insinuating I can't provide for myself? Get the hell off
Exactly.
my property. You can take that
Exactly.
cup with you. Uh, we need to encourage more baking and higher food costs. And be like, can I borrow a cup of sugar? And then you sit down and have some
No.
coffee.
No, it's
No.
$10 a bag. No, I'm just kidding.
Any thoughts so far, Colton?
Um. Well, I just keep thinking like a lot of things you guys say remind me of things ongoing with this like current immigration crisis, quote unquote. Um, like this whole idea that immigrations are a problem. Um, for example, like if you've ever seen New York, it's like a melting pot of cultures. And my opinion is that virtually everyone on the entire planet, besides the ultra wealthy, are just trying to survive. I think immigrants aren't some boogeymen hiding under your bed. They're people that keep your lights on, um, and they deserve rights like the rest of us. And every culture has its ups and downs, but when you reduce people to a stereotype, you miss out on their story. And like these are human beings with hopes, dreams, and they're just looking for work. Most of them, um, and and so everyone's so busy like fighting over who's us and who's them that we forget that we're all in this together. It's and I think it's time that we recognize the humanity in each other and embrace the chaos of our diverse world. Um, but also, I don't know. I mean, like some people make arguments that certain people, like I don't know, like Donald Trump in the debate, like famously said, like the Haitians are eating all the cats and dogs, and since then, many people have tried to like find any instance they could of someone eating a dog, and the most viral one that it was based off of was an American. But even since then, JD Vance came out and said that he made that story up, and so I think like, but I don't, but the how like how far people were like willing to go to like push that narrative, even when they never had experiences like
Yeah.
these experiences with these people, and
Well, that's another thing is obedience to authority, which I kind of passed over. But Stanley Milgram actually demonstrated how people are willing to even harm other people if they believe that they're following orders or following the right narrative from authority figures. That
Uh,
was, you could say that a lot of, the World War II German group regime was, about that. Some people, some of them may have been genuinely evil, but I think a lot of them were just like, this is what we're supposed to do. So let's do that.
just because you mentioned Milgram, I don't know if Carol's still in the chat, but that name came up a lot in her testimony and her story. She's was acquainted with Milgram.
Really?
Yeah, very
Well,
interesting. I don't know if you're still here, Carol, but um, and as far as eating pets, I know y'all are too young to remember probably, but in this area, there used to be, this is like 20 years ago or more, probably more. There was a Chinese restaurant. And I'll just tell you, I ate there a lot. Their food was good. But there were some times I would pull stuff off the buffet and I would be the texture. I'd be like, it tastes like beef or it tastes like chicken, but it doesn't have the right texture. What in the heck is this in this food? And as it so happened, a lot of the neighbors started complaining about their pets being missing and finding them in cages outside the back of the Chinese restaurant. And eventually it was closed down for a while, and then they promised, not to eat people's pets. Eventually, the restaurant caught on fire, and it's no longer there. As a matter of fact, that's where Verizon is right now. But
Imagine the
Yeah,
furry community was around at that point. They would have been
yeah.
outraged with
Yeah, but I mean, but it happens. I mean, but so are we supposed to say that, all of the Chinese restaurants are eating your pets? No. Somebody
yeah.
could be, but this
Yeah.
isn't.
Well, it's easier to disagree with that or whatever because you're like, well, I still like Chinese food, you know? It's like I don't know.
Yeah,
And
and I've seen well, I even seen
go.
okay, it's interesting to me for one that no one talks about immigrants that aren't black, but that's beside the point. Uh,
When they did a couple of years ago, they were all a different color.
well, look, I think so I seen like people were going to these extremes to make these claims, and they I forgot the name of the religion that was a religion at one point, like a dominant religion at one point in Haiti, where like it was part of their like custom or tradition to like eat animals. But I think like us as Americans, like we have like like kind of like a misunderstanding, like what we see as harmful or unethical, like might just be a different way of life that we don't understand. For example, in these cultures, like eating certain animals is a sign of respect or tradition, not cruelty. And while some of these practices might seem harmful, they can have deep historical and community significance that promotes unity and identity. And also, these cultures adapt over time, addressing issues and changing practices that no longer serve their communities. Um, and like for example, Muslims or something, like you might label people from certain countries or faiths as terrorists because you've heard one story or seen on the news like a sensational video. um, but it's important to remember that these are individuals, not a monolith, and the vast majority of people are just trying to live their lives. And the actions of a few shouldn't define an entire group, because what if we let the actions of our fellow Americans define us? Like you wouldn't want that
Yeah.
for us to be looked at as
Um,
school shooters, and and it's like these are people like like in Vietnamese people like with a rice farm, or like uh these Afghan people with a goat farm, and they're just trying to live their life, and I think there are like it is important to address like these terrorist organizations, but uh it obviously spills over into people's general perception of a group of people.
yeah. That's actually this fifth level here on this whole list. It kind of goes when you think about it, what's good and bad is different for different people and for different groups of people too. What's good for me might not be good for you, and what works in my country might not work in yours. That's like again, that's a big jump on the ladder of developmental thinking. And
Just saying, no better eat my kitty.
sure, I mean, I think for the most part we can agree that that's bad to do. But I mean, even if we wanted to say that it's a good way to honor animals, Americans might say like, okay, only if they are, my pet is like 15 years old and might be in pain or something, that. But even then, like that's a really difficult way to like combine. It's just one of those things. It's just you kind of have to be there to see it, and again that goes largely back into like finding that golden nugget. Like, when we have an animal pass away, we just put them in the ground, and then that's honorable to us, But like, what if it is more like honorable to consume their energy and use that to power yourself, or you dedicate like the day afterwards where you'd be using all that energy to something in memory of them or something, it's some crazy idea, or I don't know, but I think it's just it can be difficult to see things from other people's perspectives,
Well, also
especially when they're so.
imagine you're in one of these third world countries and you're looking at Americans, and all you see is the crazy unethical stuff that we do all the time, and it's like
Oh yeah,
it's not hard
yeah,
to tribalize against Americans, So it's like,
that's true. You
and a lot of
see,
people don't do that. A lot of people love to ignore the mass genocides we cause, and just oppression across the world.
Yeah. It's one of those things, we may see that part, devouring your own pets as like some sort of evil practice or something, but we do that to animals that we know are intelligent, and that's we do it just so that we can eat better, thicker burgers or whatever. How different is that really? You know what I mean? I don't know. That's
I
a
mean,
fun topic.
well, no, and they were talking about eating crickets. No, I can't. Just no. But
No.
no. But I mean, I see what you're saying. I mean, if we were all starving, would we eat our pets? I couldn't. I couldn't. But that's just
You wouldn't
me.
you wouldn't end it just to eat your pet, but I mean, imagine a world where it was honorable to do something like that, and to honor your pet with energy that it gives you. That's a very like almost like naturalistic, like the world is one energy, and this thing had special, you know what I mean? It's something like
I mean,
different than
kind
just
of.
like if I were able to eloquently word that or think about how to sit down and word that, it would sound a lot better or more appropriate. But
But then where do you stop? Because you're like, oh, okay. Well, my pet is old, and I'm going to consume the energy. Part of
the
them will be
same,
with me forever. Then we're going to be looking at humans like, oh, I want to consume you.
Well,
Where
well,
do
I
you
mean,
draw the
there's
line?
we don't talk about them performing ceremonies on cows. You know what I mean? Because they don't, like we don't view cows as with the same sentiment as you do a dog or a cat in America. And I see here's I'll read this to you guys really really quick. This is pretty short. I found this interesting. It says America is often seen as more tribalistic than any other country or many other countries, largely because of its deep political polarization, racial and cultural diversity, and media landscape that amplifies us versus them narratives. The two-party system creates sharp political divisions, and issues like race, religion, and class are frequently weaponized to rally groups against each other. Social media and 24/7 news cycles intensify this, feeding tribal identities. While other countries also experience tribalism, the unique mix of American history, diversity, and its media ecosystem tend to make these divisions feel more intense and constant. However, tribalism exists globally, and some countries with ethnic or religious conflicts might experience more violently than the U.S. Um, and so this is something I kind of talked about earlier: is that America, Americans, like we haven't experienced like the humanitarian crises that a lot of people in other places in the world have, and that's why we have like difficulty um aligning ourselves with these people, and so I wonder if like how do we combat that? It's like it's almost like we need a force greater than us, which is hard. We can't even imagine what that's like, you know what I mean? It's like if aliens came in and just like tried to destroy our entire world, like that's how it is for these third world countries when a much larger company comes in and starts bombing them. Like they have no, like all their differences are suddenly pushed aside, and it's
yeah.
it's a matter of fighting for survival.
I
Yeah.
think
Hello, Daniel Price. Just wanted to shout you out. Go ahead.
uh I think which I was gonna run through a little bit here right at the end, and then we can just start yapping and speculating and stuff like that because that's the fun part. But I just wanted to mention real quick. This is going to take like 2.5 minutes. You can go ahead and skip through if you or just hold your breath. If you get bored, try to hold your breath for 2.5 minutes, and then when you come to in 20 minutes, when you wake back up, we'll be speculating again. The last few things I wanted to mention are just some interesting like I froze there for a second. Just perspectives on this whole thing. I think the biggest thing to do is just to be ready to see that things are different outside of yourself, to be prepared to see that other people are entirely convinced of their own ways of life. For example, Galatians 3:28, it says, there's neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female, for you're all one in Christ Jesus. And I think that's a fun way to look at things. Similarly, a lot of psychedelic users seem to come to a similar conclusion, at least that we're no different from one another, but that we all come from and exist within the same energy, as if a living, breathing being as a collective of people. One other thing was, apparently, I didn't know this, but that whole story about the Good Samaritan, apparently Samaria was just a place. It's not like a name for a good person. Samaria was a place that was kind of almost bitter rivals with the Jews. And this whole parable was about the one Samaritan who, despite those and like almost murderous times, was, despite his own natural inclination, was the guy who was able to show mercy and kindness to somebody who was on the other side of the fence to him. Imagine, I guess, rolling up on a wreck, and you see they got like a MAGA sticker or something on the back of it, or imagine you see like a Confederacy sticker on the back of it. You're like, am I gonna go in and help that guy out? I'll like slow down and peer in, like I'll look and see if there's like movement or if they're like gone or something. I don't know. Sometimes it might be hard to make that choice, especially if the vehicle's on fire. Are you going to get into the flaming vehicle if you see it's got like a Confederate flag like hung off the back of it, like they did right after it was banned in some places?
Well, it's kind of like I'm an Alabama fan. Just I'm wearing my Alabama shirt, but it's funny, the biases. Now, I wouldn't, if somebody had an accident, it wouldn't matter to me what football team they support, but I do have to say that when I see some really, really moronic driving going on, and I'm all ticked off because y'all, I do. I have a problem with road rage. I do. Don't want to ride with me, but but aside from that, if as enraged as I am, if I see that they have an Auburn tag, which is, if you don't know, here in Alabama, it is like the biggest rival. They have an Auburn tag on the back of their car. I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm not as enraged. I'm like, ugh, it's an Auburn fan. They're just stupid.
Of course. You're telling me that your bigotry works in reverse, that like you get less angry because you already view an Auburn fan as less than human. So you're like, oh, they're not going to know any better, of course, because they're an Auburn fan. They're already
I expect you to be
mentally.
stupid. Yeah, expect you to be stupid on the road.
That's a very interesting way to turn that around. Let me mention quick these last two things. Mark 23 was the one that's like, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And I think that while it may feel justified, correct, or even good to hate the enemy, truthfully, those are not the people that will make the difference. And tribalistic hatred towards those people will not cause any positive effects towards you or your cause. And the last one is just to love your enemies as you love yourself. It's very simple, very like, it's not just an altruistic idea, right? It's not just like, the golden rule. But I think personally that way of thinking saves you from yourself. Of course, you can be hurt by those you don't trust, but I think that it is better to remain dubious to an external enemy than to trust implicitly an internal one.
That's the best statement of the night, I think. Seriously.
Well, go ahead and say something about it. I was going to expand on it, but.
No, go ahead. It was just so good. I had to say, yay, that's the best statement.
No one's stopping you from clapping if you want to. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
but go ahead.
God, it's probably annoying to hear again. I have my own opinions on it. I think capitalism is a big reason for such a divide. I think instead of inherently teaching people, this is kind of a silly quote that went around, but I think it applies here. Instead of teaching people to, when they are more fortunate than others, to build a longer table, they instead build a higher fence. And I think that's inherently what our society is built around.
A longer table implies like higher food cost. a higher fence is like
No,
a
I'm saying,
one-time
I'm
cost.
saying if you are blessed with more resources, say you have a bunch of money, instead of spending all that money on a bigger fence to keep people out, how about you build a bigger table and help people? That's the idea, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, which I mean, we're all into speculation now. I think that a lot of the Republican, or I guess more conservative mindset is like, they'll just get lazy. You hate give them handouts, and they ain't gonna learn how to fend for themselves and all this stuff. Which I mean might be the case,
Yeah,
but
but is
are you
that
not mature enough of a person to be able to deal with the consequences of that, or are you gonna shut them out entirely? You know what I mean?
but also I don't really know that I don't know any really socialists that argue that.
How do you mean?
Argue that people just want free handouts and to live for free off the government. I don't think anybody's really pushing for that. I mean, maybe
Would you if you
I'm sure there
could?
are some people, but I think
Yeah, I know.
the general overarching arching theme is just that there's much exploitation. The wages aren't fair. Um, like
Yeah.
inflation is getting higher, and it's uh these corporations aren't taking a hit. In fact, they're making more and more money as we are seeing a higher and higher inflation, therefore dividing the wealth gap even more. And yeah.
You know, going back to what you said, and I know not everybody lives by biblical principles. I do understand that. But can you imagine when you're talking about the Good Samaritan and you're talking about tables and fences? Um, do you know how hard it is? And when Jesus said, and gave this example, he wasn't saying, and he said, love your neighbor as yourself. He's not saying if your neighbor is a Republican, if your neighbor is, not a pet eater or
Is white.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
is white or so. He's saying, like, take care of, love your neighbor, you know, as yourself. And so,
Regardless.
yeah. And that is so hard because our society does not really advocate that. And it's hard, even for us internally. It's like, no, am I going to let an Auburn fan, just be wrecked on the side of the road and not render help? Of course not. You know, I understand they can't drive, and that's why they're in this situation. but,
Yeah.
you know, but seriously, when it comes to, and I have the hope, I really do, because we're seeing it now in Tennessee and Georgia and Florida and the Carolinas and all these places that the hurricane just hit. I saw in the chat earlier, it does unify those people because all of a sudden, when your road is washed out and your house is gone or whatever, you are not thinking about if your neighbor who is helpless or stuck over there, you're not worried about whether they're a Democrat or Republican. You're like, okay, I've got to render aid. And
Yeah.
I mean, and based on that, it's almost like, does America need tragedy to bring us together? I hope not,
Yeah,
but
that
it
was my
seems
idea
like
with the aliens. Maybe we need
Yeah.
a group of aliens to come attack us for us to agree on
So when
something.
we
we're
mentioned this earlier,
Earthlings.
so I heard okay, we mentioned that briefly earlier, and this is one of the things I wanted to speculate on. I think the grandest plan, right, would be to start to what is it? Like insidiously I can't think of the right words, subliminally apply like human connectivity and understanding and the power of unity and unification in general and all this like some subliminally start to apply all these different things at the same time we're preparing like a massive like fake national attack, right? And so these things will start to come together and you'll have like several different streamers or like talking heads who have been like advocating, putting aside your differences and coming together and how to do that and what a better world might look like. Like, for example, when I was talking about the children, the unwanted child issue or whatever, if you're going to force a child to live, then give the parents a system or funds or something
Resources.
Resources, exactly. But you can't eat your cake and then also have it later too. You can't say like, oh, let him be born and then like, screw him. Yeah, well, good luck, best of luck to you. But imagine we had all of this, right? That we had all put together, and then right as it was starting to come to the forefront, we like faked like a massive bombing or something, or like this crazy terrorist, or I just did, September 11th again. I just did it. I just found another spot to go and do that. And then we have something that will reverberate then through social media and will start to really take hold. That'll last longer than the short truce that we had during the first September 11th event. What do you think about that? Do you think that that's a cause you're willing to die for? Think that you'd be willing to be on another plane or something like that, to hijack another plane if you had orchestrated all this and that was your martyr moment and no one ever knew? I was kind of off the rails. I'm sorry.
I don't. Yeah, I don't.
What?
No.
You don't think that's gonna?
I'm sure there's many like real cases of that actually happening. Perhaps that could even be this case. That.
Oh
that people,
definitely has happened.
Yeah, that people orchestrate something just to get attention. But I mean, yeah, and I've argued this point before that 9/11 perhaps was I don't even know if I want to say inside job, even though I think it is, but I think that when it happened, it was a much larger tool used to enforce wiretapping, and also like literally the day before, the Pentagon had lost trillions, I think $7 trillion or something, which is like half of our national debt. I don't even know, like. How do you lose $7 trillion?
Left it in my other pants.
Yeah, well, that's we brought this up before, and it's probably something we would have to talk about on Rumble, but yeah, strangely enough, nobody cared about the missing dollars.
Yeah.
The next
Well, strangely,
day, right?
no one cares about the billions of pounds of cheese that we have in caverns underneath the United States. But I guess we'll just ignore that for now.
I care. I love cheese.
I do have a couple of actually really interesting examples I wanted to share before I forget. So a really great example was the Rwanda genocide, which is a heart-wrenching modern example of tribalism gone terribly wrong in the genocide of Rwanda. So in just 100 days in 1994, so not that long ago, nearly 1 million people lost their lives in a horrific clash between the, I don't know how to say it, Hutus and Tutsis. And this was all fueled by hate speech and propaganda and the citizens turning against each other. And it serves as a stark reminder of how dangerous tribalism can be. But I found this more interesting that after the genocide, Rwanda introduced a unique system where perpetrators and victims were encouraged to live together in reconciliation villages. It was an extraordinary example of how people can overcome tribal animosity through forgiveness and shared living. And perhaps a better example of this was the Christmas truce in World War One. In December of 1914, soldiers from both sides of the trenches paused the war and celebrated Christmas together, exchanging gifts and playing football. And it was a brief but powerful moment where the labels of enemy were set aside, even if it was just for a day.
Story. I had never heard about the concept of reconciliation villages. I think that would be really, I mean, right now that almost works better as a reality TV show. But I think that would actually be really interesting. People who are very, yeah, something like that. I think it'd be very interesting though to have. There's like I think the problem is that people don't recognize enough that there is this divide. I think that people recognize that there is a divide, but everyone just thinks that they're right. They don't think that they need to understand each other. I think the problem with that too is that understanding doesn't really solve a lot of the issues either. Understanding isn't really enough to overcome why you're right and why I'm wrong. I think it's more about the harmonization of those things. And I think that if you had a reconciliation village of like, say, thousands and thousands, right? Like a self-sustained utopia or contained utopia or of some sort, or all good, what, like a I don't know, where all the food is made there. There's no import, export. It's just like a self-contained bubble or whatever, of, our current standards of living. If we would be able to start to develop new systems, because I think right now we are so entrenched in division because it feels better. It feels right. It feels somehow like it's helping. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me, really. But we feel like our emotions are just kind of leading us. And it.
Mm,
I'm I don't know. Reconciliation villages, I can see that. I just see that we have, you could argue really that we have too much time on our hands. Um
True.
well,
because because we have the ability now to go outside of our basic needs and,
Yeah.
survival and community, things that used to be really, really important,
mm,
in our history. We needed each other to survive, especially us in the rural areas. I mean, you had to have, your neighbors, help from your neighbors. Now we've gotten past all this. We're self sufficient. We, do whatever we do to provide. And now we have time to think. And as we think, being in the, I would argue, sinful state that we are, we just come up with all kind of reasons to dislike and to alienate other people.
I think
um,
maybe next week that's what we'll talk about as self-sufficiency as an issue. Maybe.
um, I actually don't think that we have too much time on our hands. And even if we do, I don't think that uh, that going down that road is even worthwhile because a lot of economic analysts have predicted that in 10 years, 40% of the jobs we have now will be gone. Can you imagine that? In just 10 years, 40% of all the jobs we have gone. So I think it's
That's crazy.
important. I think it's important that we develop a system that provides the basic needs for the lower and middle class because going to it's going to further divide until it's just the rich and the poor and it's the oppressors and the oppressed. And I hate to be like nihilistic, but when you look at it from that scope, it's almost seems just like inevitable.
Well, which I mean, I'll say a little bit of a counter argument is I think that 40% number is calculated based off of AI and stuff like that. But I think what that probably isn't taken into account or consideration is that the new amount of jobs that will be opened up because of that. However, I will say that the divide issue will still become pretty prominent because people who have access to understanding and learning about coding, for example, or integrated AI systems, and be able to be those people who get those jobs is most likely going to be for those higher middle class folks who have guaranteed access to college
I
level
don't
learning or
know.
whatever.
You don't think the AI systems will develop enough that they are now what's used to develop new AI systems?
Oh, if that happens, that's a whole nother topic. If AI is used to develop AI, that's where we will become. That's where we will rapidly fall into like AI as God theory kind of thing. Right now, we're limited by our own ethics and abilities. But if we start to use AI to develop AI, then it's like the slippery slope idea. It becomes like a 90-degree angle. Like one slight misstep or miscalculation or one missed programming, and AI then takes control of itself. And at that point, we're all either screwed or we have no idea what will happen at that point. That's every sci-fi nightmare that you've ever seen, where AI, gets control of all the computers and shuts down the information trading system and the global banking and all this and resets, and then it determines on if humans should be either get the Matrix or you get something more that's like, I don't know. That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
I don't like to necessarily argue this, but there are certain stories and revelations that kind of hint at this society, or society moving towards like this
What, AI?
humanoid, like AI, yeah, like robots kind of running the world.
Yeah. I haven't heard that interpretation
Well,
so far, but
I forget. See, I don't know the exact story, but I remember something talking about like humanoids, like people that weren't like fully human, and that like there's like the Neuralink now, that's like some like it's I've also referred to it as the mark of the beast, which is that's another, that's a whole tangent in itself, really.
boy, I bet tribalism is going to go off the rails at that point, huh?
Yeah.
You either have the
Yeah.
mark or you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. But look, tribalism, even if it wasn't that, just with AI, if AI starts writing for AI and humans are no longer needed, I think that's something that Daniel said in the chat. Um, you're going to see a lot of unity because it'll be all the humans versus the AI bots or the AI culture. If we can't sustain ourselves or make a living or whatever because AI has taken over, then you're going to see a lot of unity.
Um,
I mean, yeah. I mean,
Possibly.
it's you said you have a Skynet situation, which is pretty funny.
And
Um,
may,
I will say there's not a lot of division when the AI. Okay, if you look at the Matrix and you look at what is it, the second or third movie, when you finally get to see Zion and all these people who in tattered robes and all this are all like living in harmony and unity, and they have this crazy dance together and all this. It's like they're just one group. They're black, white, Hispanic. They're short, tall, fat. They want different things. They feel different things, but they are all one group. Maybe we should maybe we should eliminate most of humanity so that way the only people that are left are. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, it's so easy to get off the rails and like get into like some sort of radical, viewpoint. I mean, I don't know.
well, I have a little opposition to what Silky said about the about there would be a lot of unity if
How dare you? How dare
if
you oppose me?
there'd be a lot of unity with it between the humans if the AI took over. And I also don't know if I entirely am sure of that, because of like, all right, like this recent, like where Russia like invaded Ukraine, and then suddenly all these Ukrainians join like the Russian forces when they're getting absolutely obliterated, and they changed their entire mindset. So I often wonder if AI took over and built their own AI military and like was an authoritarian like tyranny that a lot of humans wouldn't just follow along, maybe just to survive. Maybe their like ideals are like, I mean, indoctrinated to believe that AI is good. So who knows?
I, for one, welcome our new AI overlords type beat. Is that what you're saying? Like, we
Well,
have
Not
forced it.
me.
no,
I
I
will
don't.
be the
I don't.
rebels. Fight the AI.
I absolutely do not.
I have a question though, really, because as we're winding down and everything, what is I'm gonna ask the chat, or if you're watching this on the replay, please comment. Um, what is your biggest takeaway? Did you learn anything? Did anything change in the way that you perceive? Or is it just like, oh, okay, well, there's a thought, and then you're gonna go on. I mean, I don't want you to I don't want you to like out yourself, but is there any big takeaway? that you have. I mean, gonna say for myself, and this is based on the way I felt, and when we had this conversation amongst ourselves on Thursday, um, I have realized that I have a lot of flaws. I'm flawed. But yeah, of the way that we think and perceive the enemy, and how important it is to find the gold inside of people.
Yeah,
I mean,
very important nugget.
I knew that on the sandwich. I did know that. It's not like I've never heard that before, but it was a good reminder for me that people aren't flat. They're very complex.
Yeah, and I think
And
that's important to have that kind of framework that you can always bounce back on. And I think that gets pushed aside a lot in modern politics. Whereas you can justify like maybe killing someone because maybe they killed some of your people first, and it's like maybe you need some kind of framework that reminds you that nobody should be dying at all. We got to stop killing each other.
yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah.
Um. Yeah. I think that this topic is something that I really see a lot of. I personally think that I could have done better at like providing enough exposition or whatever. But I think it's important, and so I mean, especially hey, it's 2 hours 5 in the replay, and if you're here now, comment and tell me that I look stupid or something. I don't
You
know.
got that
Just
Jimmy Neutron hair going on.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm feeling like I'm about to have a brain blast. You know what I mean? But I just I don't know. We all are people as people are developing, and especially us at here as humanetics, we're also developing, and there are things that we think are important, but it's so difficult to not only take what you believe and apply it to yourself, but it's especially difficult to take what you believe, bring it up to strangers, make them understand it, make them care about it, and then also offer a solution that is attainable. And I don't know. I just am glad. I'm thankful for anyone who is here right now. I just want to say that thanks, because this whole project is kind of like my thing or my. And I'm not like trying to claim ownership or anything. I certainly couldn't do it without Silky or Colton. But this is something that matters a lot to me. There's a lot of things that I see in the world that just suck, and that people I don't feel like are being shown often. And this was probably done a lot better by somebody else. In a different world or different timeline, or even like on an adjacent YouTube channel. But yeah, if you have any thoughts at all about this as a whole, please let us know in the comments or something like that.
I tell you what, I am very pleasantly surprised to see, and that is how many people we've got some Republicans, we've got some Democrats, and I just highlighted that comment that Melanie Lynn said that she is a registered Democrat, but I feel comfortable here. And hey, that's the whole point. Like, we're all learning, and sometimes it's tough. It's like, man, when we talk, sometimes I think I suck sometimes as a person. I just do. I'm like, yeah, we have our blind spots, and I
Yeah.
think everybody together, and the chat especially, because you have so many opinions, and it makes me think, even though we don't get to all the comments, like, it's really important, and we do read them. Just because we're up here talking doesn't mean we're not reading and thinking, that is something I didn't consider.
Oh,
um
sure.
and I
Yeah, and
usually
that's
come out of these with that mentality of learning something.
yeah. I love seeing you guys because I'm a very limited person, but seeing different opinions and perspectives, and referencing different pieces of media and having different lifestyles and different perspectives on everything in general. It's always so nice to just and so that's why it's one reason I wanted to put your chat here on the screen, because I read it all. But it's difficult. It's difficult to have a coherent thought here and then talk here, and because my overall goal is just to help. Because, like, for example, Thursday, there were some things while we were talking that I'm sure Silky, like she said, she noticed some things about herself. And while I was researching this topic, as maybe like foolproof as I felt like I thought about how I also have instances of tribalistic mentality and how I'm more prone to even hate different types of people depending on what type of media they consume or how they use it. And it's even for well-rounded people of us, it's difficult to stay empathetic, to remain altruistic, to care, or to even know what to care about, or even to care about knowing what to care about. It's tough. It's easier to just think that you're right, because then you don't have to worry about any of that. And I just want to help the whole world. I want to help as many people as possible, start to move in a direction together where we can see each other and disagree and still like take ideas from each other and come up with something new. I think marriage is a very interesting example, because you take two people who are completely different, entirely different, the concept of Sonder, where everyone is a unique and complex individual, almost art piece on their own. And you take these two people and you join them together, and they create a new life. They have a child together. And then these two people raising this child create something that never existed in the first place, and that would never existed had those two people not come to know each other. And I just think that's a beautiful concept, and I think that all of humanity could do that really well in like a exponential type of way. So I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, just putting the two people together and sticking it out is,
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
tough thing, because everybody thinks they're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And except for in my case, where I know that I am, and no, I'm just kidding. I actually love being proven wrong. That's my favorite thing. I love arguing, but especially I love when someone says something that I absolutely am wrong about. I'm like, I learned something. Wow, it's fun for me. But I guess that most people don't feel that way. So
I don't feel that way. I'm like, because I'm hard on myself, and I'm like, man, I'm stupid. Like,
and
I didn't
maybe
see that.
and maybe just
Dang.
me that I just don't care about myself as like as like an idea. Like I don't care about me as like a art piece. I'm like, oh, no, I was wrong. Oh well, whatever. He's always changing. He's always growing up. Hiawatha
Let me.
said, "Oh, you go ahead."
Oh, sorry. I was looking at wisdom. Go ahead and read it.
Brain Bungler or Wisdom Sleuth 777 said, Bungler. Brain Bungler. I think one of the things, what I would feel if that happened to me, to try to put it in your backyard, to walk a mile in their shoes, to understand dynamics of a situation, to fix it for better. Having outward insight or receiving insight from somebody else, it takes dedication to talk to that person and be outraged and still sit and listen to them. To hear them spew racist rhetoric or whatever, or clearly wrong propaganda, and still listen to them and find out why they feel the way they do, is one of the hardest things to do, especially politically, because we're so emotionally charged and wrapped up in all of this. But it's worthwhile, because you'll see things that you had no idea about yourself, and your future self will thank you. I think one of the most interesting, profound concepts is that your future self is waiting on your present self to do a lot of stuff. And I don't know. You can apply that to almost anything, but
Look at this. You made wisdom spit her coffee out all over the place.
I didn't mean to. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but yeah.
But yeah. I mean, that's why I love I love this chat. I love the fact that we can disagree and the chat can disagree, and I don't, at this point, which we're microscopic channel anyway,
Yeah.
but I feel blessed that we can throw the stuff up, and I'm not worried about trolls at this point. I'm sure that'll change at some point, but
I just can't wait for trolls, because I love. I'm also
I
don't
know
want to
you
get like
love
thrown off
trolls.
track. I love arguing, like I said before. It's just my favorite thing. But it's because I like to learn things, and that's just how it is, I guess.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll start to grow and we'll be able to develop a real community. I think that would be really cool. I think overall the way that you guys talk to each other and handle each other and treat each other is beautiful. And I imagine that on a large scale. Imagine that on a scale where we influence like different rings of society and culture and groups and stuff like that. And, I'm not saying that we're right, but I am saying that, the way that we are trying to approach things is helpful for humanity. And I think it would be great to develop a large community of people who all start to inherit these concepts and apply them to themselves and be able to interact with other people that way. I think that would be beautiful, and I think that would be a positive change for culture. And maybe in 100 years, maybe we'd finally be able to stand up to the government as one unit, and I don't know,
Yeah.
something like that.
Well, I mean, that would be incredible if you can embrace the diversity between amongst yourselves. If we could all embrace our own diversity and still be unified against whatever god
Yeah,
awful thing is going to be thrown at us next, that would be amazing. It really
I
would.
agree. I think so. Um,
Uh,
Colton, do you have any thoughts about the future or what you think this channel could do, or what you want to see in people, or do you just want to see the end of capitalism in general?
well, that's a big part of it. No, no, I don't want to see the end of capitalism. I want to see the end of how it is currently. But no, I just like you said, I'm no authority figure or anything like that. I think we have a great way of discussing things in a way that other people might can relate to, at least one of our viewpoints. And yeah, like I like how we don't um claim to be all knowing or right about everything. And I think that it kind of leaves a lot of room for discussion, especially with the community here. And I think everyone always has really good input. I think we're lucky to have the people in chat that we do specifically because they have a lot of good input. There's a lot of really bad chatters on YouTube, and luckily these aren't them. So
See, live events and stuff like that, and it's just like there'd be like, hundreds of people in chat, and they're all saying like the dumbest, useless, just dropping in emojis saying, "When are you gonna play, Starfield or whatever?" It's like, and then I look over and we've got like, 4 to 5 people in chat, and they're all like, "Well, in my life, this is how I deal with this circumstance or this situation, or this is what happened to me," and this is, it's like, you'd pay good money for a single one of these kind of people to help, add to a conversation. And so,
Yeah.
for all of you that do spend any time in our chat, it is and will always be very, very appreciated. But I guess that is about all that we have for tonight, unless you all have anything else you'd like to add.
Aw.
Uh,
You're getting
I
lots
guess
of
that's it.
compliments, you young gentleman.
oh,
Oh, cool. You young gentlemen give me hope for the future that you could have this kind of hot political hot button conversation to handle it much better than some of us old dudes trying to tell us women what we can do. Some of the old dudes trying to tell us women what we can do. And yeah, I mean, I'm not saying yeah I'm smart. I'm saying that yeah, that sucks. Like it's just it's I don't know. Maybe we've been around long enough to just start to see patterns. Maybe we had more access to connectivity. Maybe we were just born for this. I don't know. I wonder. Everyone else has access to the same information. Why is everyone still so biased and bigoted, towards their own viewpoints? I don't know.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Let me ask real quick. Do y'all have, because we're always coming up with topics, and literally when we're all together we talk about anything and everything. Sometimes very diversely. But what do you all want to see? Like, are there topics, are there things that you would like to discuss?
yeah, please do. Please do. If you're here right now, or if you're again miraculously at 2 hours 18 minutes, and you're still listening to us yap or whatever. If there is something that especially if there's something that's like burning in your gut, you're like, hey, I really have been thinking about this topic for a while, and or anything, or I just want to hear their opinion on this type of thing, please let us know, because
Yeah.
there's not really anything I don't want to talk about. I just I guess for the time being, at least until I want to talk about like altruistic ideals and stuff that is wrong that could be better, but definitely there's like, conspiracy stuff that I'm interested in and paranormal stuff that I'm interested in, but I want to be able to figure out a way to loop it back to the goal of this channel, which is just human development, development of your own soul, as it were. Because I think that basically what I see is that everyone who is a guru or something that tries to talk about how to become a better person, they do it so that they can make money doing it. It's like, now take my course. Here's my class. Here's my book that I wrote. Come see me in person. Blah 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 blah. But like, I just want to do it because I think it needs to be done. So, if there's anything that you think that needs to be talked about or brought to the light or whatever, let me know.
Like, I didn't know how this was going to go, but it's like my friend from my other channel that I said was having a really hard time in this political season. I think it's one of those things that I didn't know whether to say, would you come and join the chat tonight? Because I didn't know how it was going to go. But I am going to message her and say, hey, I think you should listen to this, because this is politics without the hatred. You know what I'm saying? And how to navigate through this very difficult season. You know.
Yeah,
which I had never. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think that's
Are you
really cool that that happened to be going on at the same time. That's a great. I mean, it's just, I guess, kind of ironic that she would be in the middle of this political all this debacle and not know how to handle it, and at the same time we happen to be making a video about that. So I just find that kind of.
Yeah, it's crazy because she's been on my mind for several weeks. And, I'm just busy. I'm changing jobs, by the way, y'all. In another couple of weeks, we're going to have to change the night to probably Sunday night instead of Monday night, because of my schedule. But, but yeah, it's life. It's like, oh, I need to call her. I need to message her. And then a couple of weeks pass and it's like, dadgummit. So a few days ago, I reached out to her and I'm like, hey girl, how you doing? Haven't heard from you. And, yeah, it was crazy. It really did line up. And I had no idea that she was feeling this way and it was taking such a toll on her.
Yeah, and that is truly bizarre that this all lined up together. I like the word instead of a debacle, I like the word kerfuffle.
Kerfuffle.
Yeah,
I like
feel like
kerfuffle. You know what my favorite word is? Wackadoodle.
I mean, that's like, I mean, I like pirate language, like scallywag, stuff like that.
I throw wackadoodle in whenever I possibly can.
I've never heard you use that word before. So, but if you talk to me for any extended period, the moment I start to talk about, any sort of like opposing or like there's like a fight, I use the word kerfuffle like 100% of the time.
Kerfuffle.
It's such a fun
That's
word.
That's a good one.
And often the way that I use it doesn't fit, but it's like, hey, screw it. When else am I going to get a
No
chance?
one knows what that word means.
I don't. Is it an actual word or did you make it up?
Yeah, it basically is like spat. It's like, argument, like a short fight, but I would use it in something like much more sincere, like the like this, like, when the like the revolutionary kerfuffle, like the civil kerfuffle, like that's the way that I would end up using it,
And they were just acting all wackadoodle.
World kerfuffle too, that whole
yeah. No, that would be World Kerfuffle 3.
Well, maybe the next one.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get to rename it. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh, my go-to phrase is "Holy moly, Batman!" You know what? You know what Batman said to Robin right before they got in the Batmobile?
Oh no! What?
Robin, get in the Batmobile.
Oh my god!
No, that's a derivation of a joke. Derivation? What? There's a joke that I do like. That's like, Robin, get the batteries, and Robin's like, what's a Terry? that whole thing. But that one's significantly less funny to me than
Yeah.
Robin, get in the Batmobile.
Oh well,
Anyway.
what a kerfuffle.
Yeah, what a gobsmacked. That's another good word. Yeah.
Yes, I
I
have
feel
a
like that's
good
particularly
friend.
British though.
Yeah.
Gobsmacked.
Oh no, my Irish friend, my old boss, who I love dearly. That's she's always gobsmacked, and I had to ask exactly what does that mean. It means doing this.
Oh,
Because this,
you
Oh.
smack your gob.
yes, because this is a gob. Over in Europe, your mouth is a gob, and when you smack it, it's like because you put your hand up, going. I know we could get way off here, but let's
Yeah, no,
not.
I mean that's information I'm definitely going to use nefariously. For sure.
I don't know
But
why I
Oh,
noticed. I don't know
shut
why I
your
noticed
gob.
this, but Daniel Price seems to use the gobsmacked in chat a lot. I don't know if you guys
really,
noticed that. I don't know if he's still here, but yeah.
I wonder if he is wonder if he's Irish or whatever.
Or British, or yeah, it's a European
Hmm.
thing, I think. But
Yeah.
gobsmacked.
European.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, folks and fellers, I'm reckoning that's about the end of all we got here served up for you, hot and ready and fresh. It's starting to cool off. You have to get it out from the refrigerator, and so we're gonna have to wind down now. And if y'all ain't got nothing else to go ahead and yap about, reckon we're gonna make our exit. What y'all fellers figure?
Reckon we gonna make our exit.
I don't know how else to close, and I don't know how to open a show either. I'm just trying out new things.
Yeah, well, whatever. What were we saying? Stay human. I don't know. Be human. Be
Yeah,
a
I
good
was
human.
like,
Be a
until,
good human.
no. I was just gonna say, I always say until next time, stay human because I think that it's cute and on the nose, and then you say stay humanic, and then everyone says, what is that supposed to mean? And we all cringe, and then I swap to the intro or the outro. So anyway, I hope that you guys had a good night, and until next time, stay human.
Be a good human.
Ethics.
Good night, y'all.